I actually have just a bunch of random opinions here in the deck today, so hopefully they'll be interesting for you all. But real quick, first I want to make sure everyone knows kind of what Anaconda is, who we are. How many people here have heard of Anaconda before? Wow! I skipped this slide. Although we now hit 18 million users on a trailing 12-month basis, which is pretty awesome. And we also y'all know, so fine. We do a lot. We're known for having done a lot in the open source. My co-founder and I not only created Anaconda, but we also created things like NumFocus and the PyData community, which is now this global thing with hundreds of thousands of people involved in it. And then a lot of projects have been incubated or are supported on an active basis at Anaconda. So many of you are probably familiar with the conversations in the last 12 months around, or more than that really, but around the open source sustainability crisis and things like that. And our fix for that is we just pay developers. So like we have a couple of the core maintainers for Pandas are full-time developers, and they're just paid to work on Pandas. And same thing with Scikit-learn. And then we have some other projects that we've started, things like Intake and Dask and Bouquet and others. So we're pretty well known for some of that stuff. Numba, which is I think a fairly favorite tool on Wall Street for a lot of people with performance-sensitive and GPU-intensive code. But we also, the way we make money is not just through everyone's cheers and good love. We actually do sell a product, and that product is Anaconda Enterprise. So if y'all are looking for a machine learning platform, if you're looking for an on-premises package repository, if you have IT telling you, no, you can only use this 2-year-old version of Matplotlib, you should give us a call and talk to us about our enterprise offering. So I'm going to go through a few things today around data science, data ethics, things like that. First, I'll start with my definition of data science, which is, I think, a really important thing for a lot of people here to think about as you talk to managers, as you talk to other people, your peers, around the activity of data science. And one thing I see a lot is people do misunderstand. They think that data science, is better reporting, faster reporting with more 3D graphics. And actually, it's not that at all, right? It's not about getting answers. It's about getting better questions and getting better questions faster. Ultimately, based on what I've seen talking to customers, talking to many, many users and practitioners, managers, C-level people, what I see is that when there are successful data science efforts, what it always involves is the business actually understands that it's getting a new kind of brain power. And so it basically is about revving business models, revving how the product is actually designed. Those are the ways. I mean, here on Wall Street, of course, every trading model, right, is essentially a business model. And so we use data science not just to report on how much money you lost, you use data science to make money, right? So this is something that we try to drive the awareness of in the broader, all the other industries, all the other verticals. It's not about getting answers faster. It's not about getting out of your SaaS license so you do the same answers but cheaper. It's actually about getting better questions. And one thing we hear a lot now, well, maybe a little bit less now, but still around, is this concept of citizen data science. Because Python is too hard. People need to program. That's a software development thing. You need CS majors and all this stuff. And one thing every opportunity I get, I try to drive home this idea that citizen data scientist is it's a bogus term. So if you look at two tools that one might consider to be citizen data science tools, it's a little hard to read, but on the left is RapidMiner, and they claim about 400,000 users. Tableau has about 550,000 users in the last year's news press release thing. If you look at Anaconda, though, people who have to go and write Python code in a Jupyter notebook or Python scripts using Pandas and NumPy, we're now in the millions of unique Conda package downloaders every week. Every week. And that is just in America. We know we're mirrored quite extensively on the other side of the Great Firewall of China. There are literally millions and millions and millions of people writing Python code every day, and they weren't told that they were too dumb to be a data scientist. They just write the Python code. And the other thing that is kind of dovetailing off of that, I think one of the reasons why that narrative comes around is because people have a hiring challenge with data scientists, right? Because it's such an all-encompassing term. You need 20 years of Python experience plus 5 years of GPU deep learning experience, plus it'd be awesome if you could write these like Oracle SQL queries and optimize them, and no one can hire these people. And so there's this like, oh, well, we can't hire data scientists, so let's go and call our business analysts citizen data scientists, and we hire those people. And what I would like to encourage, kind of this to the point of it's not about getting answers, it's about asking better questions. I want to sort of drive this awareness in the broader community that data science is not actually a job or a role, it's a literacy. And in our data science user surveys that we run, we did one this year, and out of the, thousands and thousands of respondents of people who use Anaconda, less than half actually had data scientist in their title. And most people actually were learning data science to use it in their current job function, whether they were a political scientist, whether they were a geophysicist, maybe they were a marketing person, whoever. They were learning the data science to use it, not to become a data scientist as a formal title. So my assertion is that when we have organizations, lines of business, people who want to actually harness the power of data science on top of their data sets, for their business problems, if you just hire this unicorn, even if you manage to hire them, that's not enough. The whole org actually needs to be able to speak and really up-level to this kind of Bayesian kind of understanding of the world. Because if all you do is rely on this unicorn to poop out insights, you're going to challenge those insights, because those insights are going to tell you you're selling the wrong product. Do you believe that? Can you take that up to your VP? So you really need the whole org to up-level, understand, here's our assumptions, we're being explicit about our assumptions, here's our data and our modeling, let's do these things to actually model things better, right? That whole process is a group-level up-leveling. It's not just a single, hire 2 people in and they're going to solve the problem for you. And the reason why I think it's important for us to embrace programmatic tools and language tools is because the kinds of questions we want to ask, the kinds of ideas we want to express, porting our knowledge of the business domain into data, and very specific data models, that is language. We use, we can order things off of menus when we go to the restaurant, right? But when we go and want to express ideas to each other, we use language. We don't communicate with each other by just clicking little menus. So point-and-click graphical tools are really very impoverished when it comes to expressing the full plethora of opportunities and possibilities. And what we in fact see is a lot of the graphical tools for advanced BI++ kinds of tools, they ultimately kind of degenerate into a pile of complexity. If any of you have seen huge graphical visual programming tools with massive subgraphs, that's really no better than spending an afternoon learning Python, right? So this idea that language is part of the human natural instinct, it's how we communicate with each other. Python lets us communicate nicely to data and to computers. And so one of the things that we see when we go to these PyData conferences, we talk to the community, all over the place, people have this passion for this stuff because they feel empowered. I mean, when I go to India, when I was just in Berlin last week, when I talk to people who are programming for the first time, they're learning Python, they're new to it, but the amount of agency and sovereignty they feel over their business problems, that kind of empowerment, and I really use that term very intentionally, that empowerment is an important thing. We need that in the era of what's coming, right? And all of these machine learning models everywhere, we all need to be able to understand and question and refine the kinds of things that are going to be coming at us. So I would encourage people to think of Python not as software, but as a kind of thoughtware. Because it is just like calculus, just like any other thing like that. It is definitely a kind of literacy. And it really separates the haves and the have-nots. Right? The people who are numerically literate in this world are way better off than people who are not. In the world to come, in any line of business, any title you have, any branch of science, the people who can hack a Python notebook versus the people who cannot is going to be a very sharp divide in terms of your career outcomes. And so one of the things that's really interesting about Python as a language is that it is actually one of the very few languages in the world that has a history or a pedigree, a legacy of being developed with the intent of being taught. From the very beginning, the creator of Python, wanted to embark on this project of computer programming for everyone, and his early experiments in that didn't quite pan out, but Python comes from that same conceptual pedigree. And so this idea that we can empower everyone to do this. My son, he's 9 years old, he's coding Python. And it's not really hard for him. And so this idea that we can actually empower everyone to do this is really, I think, from a human civilization progression standpoint and from a human agency perspective, incredibly important. And also one other thing, just kind of building on that, there's many flavors of Python. So when I talk about Python here, I mean Python for the data science kind of aspect. If you try to go and build, Instagram or Dropbox, which are built with Python, not everyone can do that after just an afternoon boot camp, right? They're going to have to learn some actual software engineering skills. They're going to have to actually get friendly with some concepts of scalability and asynchronous programming and things like that. But for the kind of data scientific, data scripting, system scripting kinds of things, Python is massively empowering and actually quite accessible for people. Another myth that I want to, or not myth, but another concept I kind of want to poke a hole in is this idea that data is the new oil. or that data is somehow intrinsically valuable on its own. And, oh, my build is out of order here, but there's a great talk from the founder of Pimboard, and I'm going to steal some of his ideas and slides here, but he gave a talk in 2015 at Strata called Haunted by Data, and he encouraged people to stop thinking about data as oil and start thinking about it more like radioactive plutonium. And he talks about it as like, hoarding it is really cool because it's so powerful, and yet, managing the radioactivity is a real problem. So, and also what's super interesting about this, just from a statistics standpoint, is that it's true, the more data you have, the more power there is, but also the massively quicker or faster it becomes, it can go critical and cause you a real problem. But he makes a good point, which is that, we had the talk of homework of encryption, and we all feel like some kinds of data are obviously very private, and we should try to protect those things and encrypt them and all this stuff. But actually, a tremendous amount of ambient data about our patterns of life, and how one deviation that we have from our normal pattern of life could be a signifier, right? Or, so I think a point he makes later in his slides is, your fitness tracker, just your fitness tracker could reveal you're having an affair at lunchtime, right? 2 cell phones being very close to each other at 3 a.m. in the morning is actually quite an indicator. So these kinds of things, you wouldn't think some random app you gave some permission to, but we all saw this with the Strava stuff, with the Uber tracking data after you turned off the app. Ambient data about location, even metadata about when we access certain services or use certain apps, massively, massively invasive, actually. When we put it all together, when you're able to look at the central limit theorem and pop, here, your 2 standard devs out. What's going on with you, right? So this is actually, the important thing to think about is that data, privacy and anonymity, and the kind of the idea that we can live private lives, that is contingent, it's kind of a herd immunity, right? So even if you turn off all your tracking stuff and you're a super crypto nerd about all this stuff, if everyone else around you isn't, you're a glaring hole in the data, and you're just as easy to track as if you're a bright spot. So these are the kinds of things that I want people to get, especially in this crowd, in this town, a lot of very sophisticated people who know a lot about statistics. Here, the issue is signal versus noise. The issue here is not about merely aggregate or protecting data at a low level. It's actually about the concept of privacy and the concept of what we can reveal about populations when we start summing all this stuff together. So I highly encourage people to look at his talk. It's absolutely fantastic. And he has, he goes even further, and he talks about the fact that when we start collecting personal data and we store it forever, we are making a serious decision. That is a real thing. And we don't want to just say all governments are evil, but he says all governments are evil in the long run. There's going to be abuse of power. There's going to be foreign people. If you feel your government's great, but other governments are not, they're going to get up in your government, right? All governments kind of get up in each other's business. There's no safety here. Do any of you know what this picture is of? How many people raise your hands? Utah Data Center. That's right. Utah Data Center. You should Google it if you don't know what's at the Utah Data Center. So the last thing I'll end, I have just a minute and a half left, the concept of ethical AI. How many people here are concerned about ethics and machine learning and AI? Right. I am too, right? This is a real, as you can tell from my talk so far, it's something I'm concerned about. Here's the thing, though. How many people feel like you have executives and sort of stakeholders, people with budget authority, who are also concerned about ethical AI, who would like to get ethical AI, right? They'd like to get some. And I'm going to call back to a quote from Benjamin Zander, the director of the Boston Philharmonic. He does these master classes. You can see him schooling these really great violinists and cellists and pianists and instructing them how better to play their instruments. And he has this really great quote. He says, at the end of the day, music is an expression of love and kind of your own feeling. You can't be a better musician than you are a person, which is a quote that's always stuck with me because I always felt like no matter how good or bad of a person I am, if I practice violin enough, I'll get good at violin. But apparently he says, no, you can only be as good of a musician as you are a person. And my clue here is you cannot buy off-the-shelf ethical AI. You can buy effective AI, but if you're not doing ethical things as a business, you're not going to have ethical AI, right? So this is another point of awareness I would like for folks to drive and to reiterate to other stakeholders. We can't go do ethical AI. We can try to apply AI to a more ethical business. And that's really the important way to think about it. Don't try to launder the stuff. Don't try to just, we have an automated system for shooting babies, but we're going to get an ethical AI off the shelf from Target, and now it's an ethical AI embedded in the Gatling gun. That's not how it works, right? So this is really, we don't have ethical guns. We don't have ethical cars or airplanes. Some airplanes fly relief supplies. Other airplanes bomb people, right? So the ethics is in the business, not in the technology. It's in the people who drive business decisions around the technology. Thank you. I'm sure there's no questions to follow up on any of those things.
I love these kind of talks because you focus on really interesting topics and didn't necessarily sort of pitch the company as much. But tell us maybe a few words about the business aspects of Anaconda. What kind of customers you serve, and you mentioned a little bit of the open source traction, but let's talk about the business aspect of this.
Yeah, sure. So it's very interesting. We do open source in a different way. So we don't do like an open core model where 5,000 rows of a data frame are free in Pandas, and then 5,000 the first row costs you $20. We don't do the open core model. We don't actually have a SaaS offering, a software as a service offering. It is enterprise platform software. We can install in the cloud for you in a VPC. We can install on-prem. We actually spend a lot of our energies doing on-prem. And so the software, there's this great quote about platforms. I forget who it comes from, but they said that ultimately successful platforms seek to commoditize their complement. And so what we have is we sort of stumbled into this really cool killer app with Anaconda distribution, Anaconda package manager, and all of a sudden, we also sort of put Python for data science on the map. So all people wanted to use Python for data science. And around that pre-commoditized market, now we're standing sort of the enterprise platform up and our commercial offerings as a paid complement to all that. So yeah, our customers include many people in the Fortune 100, a lot of big logos, a lot of banks up and down Wall Street. We tried to sell like the open core stuff. We tried it back in the day. Maybe there's even some early customers like Numba Pro, so our compiler, but if you want GPU support, you had to pay a little extra for it. And it just turns out that the ethos of the community and the kinds of users that we had, they were just not down for that kind of thing, and it would never sell enough to pay the cost of building the business. So we decided that, look, everyone wants to use open source. Businesses have a hard time consuming open source anyway. IT tends to be a tower of no for people, and so to bridge the gap between the quants and the data scientists to the IT, we can build the bridge that bridges these things, meets compliance the check boxes. We have reps and warranties around the use of open source software. So really like Red Hat for like the Python and R stuff, and that's generally the business model.
Great, very interesting. All right.
Hi. So, I mean, I completely agree that getting more people in an organization, Python literate and data science literate, is extremely important. But in practice, when I've tried to do that with some of my teammates who are used to analyzing, a few thousands of rows in Excel, and now they can't do that because their data set has 2 million rows and they need pandas, I feel like trying to train them is hard because I can't repeat an entire introduction to computer science class. And as accessible as Python is, there's still a challenge in getting people who haven't programmed up to speed with it. Do you feel like Anaconda has or is planning to offer something that can really help bridge the gap between people who do data analysis in Excel and getting them to translate that mindset into Python?
Yes, so that's a super interesting question. We actually had an offering for a little while called Anaconda Fusion, which will let you basically do Excel notebooks. Do notebooks and expose them as widgets in Excel. And then you could actually move data from Excel as inputs into notebook functions, and then also pop like interactive graphics and stuff right into Excel. If anyone wants to buy that, just let me know. And but we sort of have stopped development on that for a little bit because we want to support those kinds of users, but at the same time, we have limited resources, right? So an Excel bridge is, we can do an automated thing like that. I think it's actually best served by people like yourself who sit alongside these folks and have the domain context of what's the interesting bit for them to do in Excel. And then if you actually can export notebooks and models and things for them to, if you can export the data sets and things like that for them to consume, maybe that's a good interface. It's kind of a punt of a answer, I'm sorry. Like, also, I couldn't help but think, like, here's the other thing. One or two of those people in the cohort, let's say you have 10 coworkers, right? One or two of those people are going to be sufficiently motivated to go and learn some of the stuff, and they're going to just, there's kind of a Darwinian aspect to this, right? They're going to make more money, do more stuff. They're going to automate away stuff. I remember when I was consulting here years ago, there was some poor woman who would spend 3 hours in her afternoon waiting for an HP laptop to finish running a 2 million row VLOOKUP. And I was like, this is literally like a 2-second process with like some basic Python code, and XLRD to read the Excel files. And so that kind of thing is the kind of power that you can bring if you create examples and just try to help a few people along, but not everyone. And I think Father Darwin takes care of the rest a little bit. Sorry, I mean, I'm just telling you the truth. Yeah.
One more here.
I actually have a really general question. What do you think is actually the best way to deal with people trying to use data for something bad? Like, if you are a stakeholder in a company, you're not going to worry about, oh, I'm going to use the data to actually help people. You're trying to use that data to compete with competitors.
I don't understand the question. Like, is the bad thing that your competitors are the bad people? Or
No,
you have
like,
internal.
what would be the best way to deal with something like that if you have a company that's going to use the data in a bad way? Should like the government step in, or should like someone else step in?
Well, I mean, if you feel like it's like a really bad thing, I would like there are whistleblower protections. Well, I mean, we laugh, but it's true, right? Like this stuff, it's bad, right? It can actually we have inadvertently built a lot of applications and put a lot of power around people who create even silly little like startup apps can go and aggregate a tremendous amount of data on people. Like J. Edgar Hoover would be drooling over this stuff. So, like, I'm serious. Like whistleblower protections are there if you really feel like something bad's happening. Then, in addition to that, you can also vote with your feet and find another job. I think right now, unfortunately, the problem is the government can't step in on some of these things because I mean, the regulators are just so far behind. I mean, they don't even understand how Facebook makes money, right? So, like, to get them to understand what the central limit theorem is, like, that's just never going to happen. And the other thing is, and this is going to be my last little grenade I'll throw into the thing here. Right now, we never got the correction we're supposed to get in 2009, right? And we're kind of coasting the end of the Bretton Woods 2. Like, we're getting negative interest rates. We all know something bad's going to happen. And so any regulator that comes in and blows up the business model of a ton of like high valuation VC stuff, they're going to trigger a pretty bad situation. So I think say what? No, well, yeah. I'm just speaking, this is a friendly chat, right? With a lot of, I'm down here in Wall Street telling everyone what they already know.
It was a friendly chat.
Yeah, it just got real. No, but I think that But no, I'm serious though, right? Because the business models, unfortunately, a lot of VCs, they tie business, they treat data as oil. And actually, if you listen to the Pinboard guy's talk, I don't want to butcher it, okay? I mean, I like the guy a lot. I respect the crap out of him. But his talk, he talks in there, and he shows how back in the day when we first discovered nuclear power, they thought that nuclear power was super awesome. There were people making like radioactive bubble gum and radioactive underwear. Like, before we understood how bad this stuff was, all that seemed like a great idea. So, unfortunately, a lot of the valuation stories around some of these companies are, we're going to get this app into everyone's hands, we're going to watch what all these kids do, we'll build these models, and get advertisers to have more effective advertising to all these kids. I could go raise $50 million on that story, right? I mean, you might not give me 50, but you give me 10, right? Right? 10? Are we good? 5? 8? 8. Safe. It's a safe, though. No board seats.
Special price for you, my friend.
So, but the point is that happens all the time, right? And the problem is not just us. This is the one thing I will say. This is not just us. If you look at China, they're massively effective at doing this kind of thing, right? And the Chinese apps are coming in, TikTok and things like that. They're invading Western soil. And the one thing that we've done very well, the West has done very well, is it's propagated its values along these like mercantilist lines of influence and investment. But now you have these other countries are starting to rise up, and there's going to be counterflow, and we're going to start getting the values of these other apps. They're going to be creepy. There's absolutely no reluctance to have surveillance capitalism from other countries, and that's bad. And so I think all the practitioners here, people here who are statistically aware, who are using tools like Python and Anaconda to do this kind of stuff, it is on you to make an ethical decision. It is on you to vote with your feet on these kinds of things. So anyway, that's
super interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.